Hello everyone, I'm Black Marvin, a progressive psychedelic trance artist, a professional sound designer, and I'm also a teacher for electronic music production. Today, there is a free plugin by Acustica Audio. It's called Pumpkin, and we're gonna check it out. Now, I'm not paid by Acustica for this video. The plugins are really good. They're that good that they make me sound like I'm paid, but I have no affiliation whatsoever. Uh, but some of the stuff I really like. First, it's free. What I like also about free plugins is like, uh, sometimes I'm looking for stuff to get my students in the world of mixing and mastering and to help them get the ball rolling. And the Acustica plugins are really good for that. There's other free plugins that they have that are really cool. And I think that they would pair really well with Pumpkin. In my opinion, Eminence is a must. Arctic is a must. And the Coffee Pun and also the Baxandol Coral EQ. I think they're a must for anyone that wants to do mixing and mastering and start to dive into a bit of a more professional approach and more serious approach to mixing and mastering. So a bit more about Pumpkin. It's using the Hyper 3 technology. It's a technology by Acustica that makes their plugin lighter, and usually all plugins that have the Hyper 3 saturation engine sounds really good, like this one. And it's a saturator that contains 4 modes of saturation. I'm gonna go ahead and guess that also because of the names, that these are saturation algorithms that are present in other plugins. I see Crimson, I see Taupe, Violet, and another one that I don't remember by heart, but I'm guessing that these algorithms are integrated within Pumpkin using the Hyper 3 technology, and they all sound really good. There's also one low shelf and high shelf EQ integrated in the plugin, and you can do some nice little twist. And in the video, I show you actually a little trick with the low shelf that I do. So before we dive into this video, if you need some help, getting a bit into like this mixing and mastering thing a bit more seriously, and it's very it's hard because there's different levels of understanding. I was just discussing that with the students this morning while we were just looking at the mastering that has been done on our track. And the thing is, you can be shown stuff, but there's different levels of understanding, and there's a lot of educative material out there, but sometimes just having someone face to face to discuss these things, it really helps. So if you need some help, I have a mentorship program. It's called Fractal Mentorships, and the link is in the description if you want more information about it. And also, if you don't know this channel yet, or if you know, in any case, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already. It really helps. And now let's dive into the world of Pumpkin. So we are inside Pumpkin. Before we do an overview of the interface and the feature, let's just listen to the test track. This is my next release called Electricity Makes You Float. Currently, this is a state of it's being mixed. It's like a stem mixed down and it's not finished, but it's a very good test material because you want to, you can test it on, well, don't test it on a mastered track. It's not going to be a very good test material. Also, you can test it in a pre-master, but really to have access to all these stems, because we might test it on individual channels as well, that's a really good test material. This is how it sounds right now, and Pumpkin is bypassed. I chose this section because it has a lot of meat, but we're gonna use it on the master channel right now. But like I said, you can use it on individual channels as well. And it's just that when doing demonstration on the master channel, it's going to make some things very obvious. But there's also multiple uses that you can do in a very subtle realm. I'm gonna recommend this plugin a lot to my students, so I want this tutorial to be some sort of good first dive into the world of saturation with this plugin. First, there's the input knob and the output knob. That's very important because You can have the same setting but change the behavior with just the amount of input that you put, or the amount of output is just there to compensate whatever you're doing inside Pumpkin. But really the input, you're gonna have different reactions depending on the amount of input that you drive into it. Usually, if you're anxious about metering and stuff, if you go with minus 18 dBFS as an entry level for your gain, it's going to be a good value, a safe value. I think we might be running the signal a bit hotter today, but it's not really a problem. But yeah, for those who like special values, go with minus 18 dBFS. Now the main thing of Pumpkin, it's the drive. So that's literally the strength of the saturation processing. You have 4 different models here. I'm gonna say it right now if I make like an order of how I like them. First one is taupe, second one is violet, third one is crimson, and gunmetal is the one I like the less, but I like all of them. You're gonna hear all of them. Now, also with Pumpkin, you have some nice visual feedback that's fairly new to me when it comes to Acustica plugins, especially the free ones. Now we have some metering. You also have a good visual aspect of the curve. This is the shape. It starts like this, but truly the way I use, and I like to use Pumpkin so far, is start with a very small shape, and you're going to work in a very soft realm, and something around those values, and then you adjust the drive. But yeah, you can see this one a bit, like soft. It's not clipping, but soft clipping, hard clipping. So you can see that this is softer, and that's definitely harder. It all depends on what you want to achieve, but like I mentioned, I have good results around these values and something around here for the drive, but we're going to have some real sound examples. Now here is what you are currently listening to. LR is basically the default state. That's if you're beginning and even intermediate, I would recommend that you stay with that. But if you want to hear the mid reaction or the side reaction, you can. And you can also hear the delta, which is basically like the amount of stuff that has been, I think it's been either the stuff taken out or the amount of stuff that is processed in relationship to the original signal. I'm gotta say, I'm not sure about this claim, but yeah, that's the delta usually. So if we move here, we have a low shelf and a high shelf. Now you have this pre and post thing, which is, it's really cool. It might be confusing because it's these sliders, especially for beginners and more intermediate users. But you can see it basically as a pre-shelf and a post-shelf. You know what? For this one, let's go into a parametric EQ. I really want to show you what's happening right now. So in order to illustrate what's going on, I made this little chain here. You have pre. Pumpkin is basically the saturation, and post is after. So whenever you move this slider, you're basically EQing in this fashion, either plus or negative, before the signal enters the saturation process. And this slider corresponds to pre-shelving here. All right, so that's everything happening before it enters the saturation process. Basically before it gets all that saturation. And you have the post here, and the post sliders is once this has been saturated, there's this or this applied to it. I'm gonna show you a technique with the pre-low shelf that I like to do sometimes. And here you have the frequency selector for your low shelf and your high shelf. You also have a dry and wet mix, which is really cool. And you have 4 different EQ mode here. Now let's start saturating. We're gonna start with taupe. Let's start with my favorite algorithm. And let's just drive some stuff into it. I'm gonna go back to a more neutral position. Let's go. Now the technique I'm using right now, it's saturating too much, but I made a video on how to find the exact sweet spot for saturation. And I'm going to use the exact same technique. I'm going to put a link in the video. It's a formula that you can use how to find the correct saturation spot for any saturation type. So I'm going to use that. But whenever you're using a new saturation, it's always good to just crank it to a point where it really saturates. And then you're going to go back to the level that you want. You can see when the shape is at its largest value, it's really hard. I would consider this being a good value. Now let's bypass it. Yeah, that's like how I would use it. Now, a question that often comes up is like, what am I looking for? Or why is this for? Well, you can make stuff bulkier, you can make stuff bolder, but there's also a phenomenon that appears is that I'm sure you're aware of glue compressors, right? But if you have a proper saturation going on whatever you're doing, it's most likely going to result also in a glue and consolidating feeling. And that's kind of what we're getting right now. Now let's try another mode. Yeah, so in this configuration, I think I prefer this one. Let's go with Crimson Zen Hard. Let's go with Gunmetal now. You can also see that anything, past this, for a master channel, it kind of becomes too much. We start to degrade the audio. It's good for demonstration, but we start to degrade the audio. Now, the shelving trick I wanted to show you is like, we're going to use, and that's something I often try to do, is the more the signal is towards the sub frequencies, the more I tend to leave it be and not saturate it. Because sub frequencies sometimes they don't react really well unless you're going for that distorted 808. But even then, I try to leave those as most untouched as possible. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna low shelf prior to the distortion process. So it's not a multi-band selector per se, but you can kind of select where you're going to affect the frequencies with these EQ. Now there's different EQ modes. Let's cycle through these if we see a difference. yeah, I think I prefer the hyper one for sure. Now, quickly want to speak about the oversampling process. It's a way to reduce aliasing by the plugin, which is most of the time whenever you're saturating, it's causing aliasing unless you're using like an actual hardware. But everything that is in the digital realm and saturation, it is creating aliasing. So you can use these different oversampling algorithms to compensate for that. I don't necessarily want to open that can of worm today, but I wanted to explain what this is for. I usually love a lot the Acustica's oversampling algorithm. I think they're very effective. Now I'm gonna disengage Pumpkin on the master and we're gonna experiment with it a bit on the bass. So I have it on the bass here. So I actually like how it, this combination of the EQ trick and the way the saturation is driven, it kind of gives a nice like rounder bass. So one moment, let me save this preset. And by the way, I'm going to share these presets with my students, members of Fractal Mentorships. So they're going to be available there. I think I'm going to make a couple of other ones. And there's going to be a small pack available for my students. One last thing I want to talk about, it's the metering, okay? And actually, it's very cool because you can see that the violet signal, I'm going to say it's the violet color, is the dry signal, and the orange color, it's the pumpkin signal. So it's the saturated signal. And visually, what's cool is that the saturation process, sometimes you're going to hear that it sort of rounds off the edge. And we can visually see that if we play. You can actually see like the orange signal, it shaves off. So that's a nice way, I think, to get a visual signal on what's going on. So again, for beginners, intermediate, that, if you're starting to dive into this world of saturation, hopefully it's gonna help you understand and shape your ears to understand what saturation is. And for now, that's Pumpkin, an amazing free release by Acustica Audio. And that's it for this video. It's really a free plugin of immense quality, honestly. And you have to install the Aquarius installer to install it. You have to give some of your informations. But you know what? When I see this, it's like, please take my informations. It's much worth it in exchange for such a nice plugin that is free. And I want to get notified with the new Acustica stuff. I currently own Coral, not to brag, but I currently own Coral 2, Pink 4, I have Diamond Lift 4, Fire the Clip, and I think that's not counting the free plugins, and they're really good plugin. So just wanted to throw that out there. I really like the plugins. I think that love is deserved. So hopefully it gave you either a better understanding of Pumpkin, maybe a first contact with the Acustica plugins, or just maybe, you learn a bit more, but you already knew them. Who knows? And yeah, that's pretty much it. Don't forget to check out the resources in the description. I also have other videos related to Acustica. There's also the video about the saturation formula that I talked about. The link is in the description as well. It's a formula to help you find the correct saturation sweet spot for any saturation plugin. And I will see you in another video. Happy producing.